Your Lakers look stacked.
They look pretty good. Yeah, I think Montrezl Harrell is a great pickup.
I mean, that's been the best pickup I think so far. And then they've gotten some other additions there. Schroeder, I think, is a really underrated player. I like him a lot. I think he's had kind of a rough draw. I think he was good in Atlanta. I think he was pretty good in OKC. So it'll be good to kind of have him in the role that he's in. And I don't think you guys are done yet. So, I mean, definitely looks like the most stacked team coming into the newest NBA season. And where we thought Golden State was going to kind of immediately compete, really stinks to see what happened with Clay.
Yeah, I hate it. Obviously, thank you, everybody, for joining us live. This is our soft open where we talk about stuff. We're going to jump into the intro video, and Jesse and I have a crap ton of stuff to get to today. Bear with me. I'm on the wrong screen. Okay, here you go.
Thank you for listening to this Belly Up Sports Podcast Network product. Some said we go belly up, so we made it our name, and we're still here.
Jordan. Oh, a spectacular move by Michael Jordan. Drives one out to deep left field. This one's got a chance to get out of here. Gone! Three-run Jimmy Jack first. Big league home run for Mike Trout.
Pass is intercepted at the goal line by Malcolm Butler.
And an 81-point game. 55 in the second half. Ladies and gentlemen, you have witnessed the second greatest scoring performance in NBA history.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Infinity Sports. As you can see, I am joined by the Biss, Jesse. Thank you for joining me again. I know you've had to do a lot of fill-in roles here. You've become like our, what's the pitcher there that pitches every type of inning? Miller?
Yeah, Andrew Miller there. He played for a few teams, including the Sox, I think, as well as the Yankees. But I think it was when he was with the Indians under Tito Francona's when he really started to get stretched there and moved around, whether he's going to be a reliever or a starter. So whenever you guys need me, you know, I'm always able to come into the lab here. My latest studio is at the Newbury Public Library, so don't mind a little bit of rain. You know, we are getting some rainy conditions here in New Hampshire. I know Wayne's a little bit more secure inside his place, but he's getting some weather as well. So bear with us, but I'm really excited to have another fun episode. You know, Sully's locked out and really allowed me to step in on 2 Mondays, so 2 big recap days. So excited to recap some big NFL games with you, Wayne.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it is Monday, so that means it's an attic day. So if you lose either one of us, I apologize. It's a weak signal.
You know, without seeing that on video, we're really getting the full display. You saying it's an attic episode. I'm not sure if we're having like an intervention episode, if we're going to be talking about the NFL game. So
we'll see. Obviously, you're watching at the time YouTube Live, Facebook Live, Twitter. We're live on all 3 platforms. If you miss any part of the show, you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, and Amazon Music in audio format, as well as YouTube Live, YouTube channel. You can go there. The live show is usually there the next day. If you want to hit us on social media, at Infinity Sports Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and at Sports Infinity 5 on Twitter. You can also visit the website, www.infinitysportspodcast.com. It will take you to all of those links, including YouTube, as well as take you to our store where you can support the show by buying some merchandise. Jesse, we did upgrade a couple of things. We've got the Infinity Sportswear, but we have Failure is a Choice, doing some motivational stuff heading into the holidays. People like that kind of stuff. Tom Brady wearing it there when he signs with the Bucs, so we certainly appreciate Tom supporting the show.
Oh, it's always good to be able to get huge characters and legends of their sport like LeBron and Tom to be able to don the Infinity Sports logo. I love what you've done in refining it, and I know just from being behind the scenes a little bit that there's some continued workshopping on some shirts. So I'm excited to see what may come out as the holidays continue to approach.
For sure. Obviously, big show today. We have, we're going to play Greater Than. Jesse loves playing that game. We're going to recap.
Oh, I love it.
Week 12 of the NFL. Not sure how many games we're going to get through because there's a lot of games, but we have a lot of news. probably a week and a half or so ago. We haven't really had a chance to talk about it with a bunch of rotating schedules and stuff, but I did want to mention, obviously, Diego Maradona, age of 60, passes away, heart attack, cardiac arrest. One of the greatest of all time, 300 career goals, 21 World Cup matches. I think it's safe to say you can do a lot of drafts like I do as well in the FBAS. When they do soccer drafts, basically this guy and Pele are almost always the top two.
Absolutely. If he's not first overall, then he's always taken within the top three soccer picks. A legend in his era. What he did to lead his country and his teams is always going to be seen as legendary. I know that the last time I believe I was on, we got a chance to do a greater than, and I mentioned, him versus Lionel Messi, and I think both of those guys have done a great job of representing their country. I think that Maradona played certainly in a different time, but you see his footwork for a guy that wasn't the most physically fit, that didn't have all the tools and science that today provides. So I think that certainly a legend. Sad to see him go, but someone who lived a fun lifestyle and certainly a successful lifestyle on the pitch. So sad to see him go. But he certainly lived his life to the fullest.
For sure. I always say, he's beyond my time, so is Pele. I mean, I mentioned Maradona had 300 career goals. They talk about guys who have 500 career goals like Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo. Pele had 1,300 goals or something like that. Insane.
It's insane.
So, he was not one of those league leaders, but again, it's his footwork was just incredible. Like we saw in the video, if you're not watching, we showed a video. His footwork is absolutely insane. Now, my personal GOAT, and we've talked about this before, is Ronaldo from Brazil. Just the size, 6'1", 6'2", physical strength, speed, and he had incredible footwork as well. And so that's the guy that I have as number one. And I remember we did this draft recently where I had said, I'm taking him with the first overall pick or something like that. And everybody was like, what? Like, this is the first time ever that Pele or Maradona has not gone number one.
Yeah, it certainly was shocking. I think it's fun to get you into those drafts to get more of your opinions on not just basketball, but in other sports, and to see where your passion lies. And I think it was fun and shocking for, not just myself, but everybody else in that small community to be able to see where your passion lied. And it lies with that tank Ronaldo. And I know that you have other favorite players, but he's number one for you. So it was great to see you stick to your guns and not kind of go with what the crowd may have expected. So, I certainly respect you for that.
Now, something that obviously a favorite player of ours that we have seen for years now, the poor sport Tom Brady earlier in the season did not shake hands or meet with Nick Foles after a loss to the Bears. And then recently did not meet Jared Goff at midfield or wherever they meet. And I don't know, this blows my mind because obviously he's a guy who watched Brady for years. We know he can have a little bit of sour grapes after a loss, just like Belichick. Rex Ryan had said Tom Brady's Bill Belichick with a better arm.
Yeah.
So very similar personalities. But, I mean, what do you make of this? I mean, as somebody like myself who rooted for Tom Brady, to see him twice this year now refuse to, meet the other quarterback at midfield.
I certainly think he's losing a little bit of patience with the season. You're telling, our fans that we're recapping week 12. There's only 4 games left in the regular season. We're going to get to the games, but the Bucs are 7-5. So, I think he's losing some patience. He's certainly not as happy-go-lucky as he used to be. That's not to say that every game he won or lost with the Patriots, he went out and shook their hands. He has shown to be an emotional guy. It's not something I love to see, but at the same time, at this point in his career, I love to see when he throws interceptions. So, not something we were accustomed to seeing a lot when he was here, as far as being a poor sport. But we do know that he is an emotional guy. He's always been an emotional guy, whether it be in between, the numbers on the field, on the sideline. He's pretty composed in press conferences, but he seems to be wearing thin on patience as this season goes on. I know there's been some chatter as well about the fit between Bruce Arians and himself, because obviously he's been so accustomed to having the same type of leadership or foundation in New England, and then going to Tampa Bay. It seems like Bruce Arians and Byron Leftwich are not providing that same type of support or play calling for him, and so there's at least some outside reports that there's been some strain.
Well, I was just going to ask about that because Bruce Arians runs an air raid type offense, which was great for Jameis Winston because he's got a big arm and he can throw the ball down the field. Tom Brady cannot. We've talked about it ad nauseum. He's got a jello arm. He can't throw it deep. So when you've got guys like Mike Evans and Godwin who are big targets who can go deep, it's almost like you've got to curtail the offense to him and have all these pass routes that are 5 to 11 yards. And instead, they're still trying to run this deep Jameis Winston type offense with him. And I think that's the main reason for the struggles.
Yeah, going back to what we saw him succeed with the most in New England, I would say one of those things is play action. And, watching a lot of the Tampa Bay games that we've had a chance to see, because, of course, with this dream team, or at least the dream team on paper that they've been able to compile, they've been getting a lot of primetime games. And so in the times that you get a chance to watch them, they're not running any play action. They certainly are just bombing it down the field. And I don't even know, you mentioned it worked for Jameis Winston. I don't even know if it did. I mean, yeah, he threw 30 touchdowns. He also threw 25, 30 interceptions. So I don't know if this is the right offense for Tom Brady. He needs to be utilizing his running backs more, utilizing his tight ends more. I am noticing Gronk get much more involved in the offense. But for the most part, they're not utilizing current Tom Brady as they should. I don't know if he's ever been this great deep ball thrower, but whatever he did have for skill in that area, he doesn't have it anymore. He's thrown more interceptions than I think they imagined he'd throw all year. And it's because they're utilizing him in the totally wrong way. They need to stop having him throw balls 15, 20, 25 yards down the field and utilize him in the way that he succeeded in New England. Play action and then those dink and dunk throws. I mean, you've got Antonio Brown. You've got a great slot receiver who still looks to be in great shape. Utilize those shorter throws, those 5 to 10 yard dink and dunk throws that will get you down the field and get the ball away from the other team. He keeps bombing the ball, and it keeps ending up in the opposition's hands.
Now, from the NFL to college, obviously we have Sarah Fuller makes her debut for Vanderbilt. First time ever that a female has played in a Power 10 or Power 5 conference. She's a kicker. She gets in for one play. It's the kickoff. She squib kicks it about 30 so yards. And then she's named the SEC Special Teams Player of the Week. Now, this has drawn some ire from people who I believe are only upset because it's a female getting the award. Because the reality of the situation is, how many times do we see, the manager of the football team, they put him in, the other team lets him score a touchdown, and he gets Player of the Week, and it's just because it's a feel-good story. This is a feel-good story. And
right.
It's special teams player, who do you think should have gotten it? The gunner from Tennessee who made 2 tackles? I mean, who really got snubbed for this award?
Not only that, I mean, I don't think there's a more deserving player, but she could have had different opportunities as well. I mean, Vanderbilt, they ended up getting skunked in their game. I believe they ended up losing 43-0 or something like that, but they got skunked. And if they had a chance to, kick a PAT, she would have had that opportunity. So I think it's great to see that Vanderbilt allowed her that opportunity. I think we're seeing that in coaching and then in some playing, like kicking here is probably where we're going to start to see that, blur the lines. But I think it's great for her. It's great for sports in general. I think anybody that is sour about it needs to go pound sand. I'm not here for that type of negative vibes or negative feelings. I'm happy for her. I wish she'd gotten the chance to go ahead and kick a PAT or kick off after a score, but unfortunately Vandy didn't score. I mean, they're 0-8 this season. Their coach, Derek Mason, just got fired. Great decision for that team to allow her to play, but it was within the same 48-hour period. Their coach got fired for having, I believe, his 8th consecutive losing season.
Well, I think that, not to put people into a box here, but I do find that a lot of the same people who have a problem with her winning Special Teams Player of the Week are a lot of the same people who had a problem with Michael Sam winning Co-Defensive Player of the Year his senior year at Missouri.
Yeah, I mean, I think those are some touchy subjects. They were touchier back then. I think now, that contingent of people that are still sour about it is getting smaller. I think it's, getting much more acceptable to see different things in sports, not just positional changes, but being more open about things like inclusion of someone like Michael Sam or inclusion of someone like, Miss Fuller. I think either one of them, it's great for them to have the opportunities that they've been given And I think anybody who is, having negative feelings about it is really wasting their time and energy.
Now, a mind-blowing statistic that we got to see this Saturday, or nobody really saw it because it's for the Buffalo Bisons, but we've got Jarrett Patterson has 36 carries for 409 yards and 8 touchdowns against Kent State. Now, this is coming off of his game last week against Bowling Green, where he had 31 carries for 301 yards and 4 touchdowns. So I see that they rate him as like a 2021 draft prospect because they think he's going to go all 4 years. Nobody has him rated as a 2020 prospect. I don't know if a guy keeps running for 300-400 yards a week. I think you got to look at him as a prospect of some sort, right?
If you're him or you're his support group, then you tell him to go ahead and leave this year. I'm already starting to see players amongst college football start to leave so they can go ahead and declare. And this gentleman right here, he's going to need new tread on his tires, or the tires are going to fall off. I don't think he can do another year of this in college for Buffalo and not get paid to do it. You see him weaving through traffic here on our video clip. I really hope you guys get on YouTube if you're not already watching live and get a chance to see this, because Wayne cut up some great clips of this running back, and I think that this gentleman can't afford his livelihood. His legs can't afford to continue to do this again for free next year. He's got to go ahead and use his support team, and he's got to get some type of NFL agent to get him into the league, even if it's a late round pick, because he obviously has skill. He can find the hole. So I think he's going to find himself in an NFL camp, an NFL locker room coming up.
He does have a great vision from what I've seen of the highlights. He does break tackles. He runs incredibly quick once he hits the hole. I think the main thing is that they list him as a guy who runs a 4.55, and I think for him to get into the league, he would have to run a sub 4.5, like a 4.48, 4.45, and then I think we're talking about a 5th, 6th round pick maybe.
Yeah, maybe spend the next 6 months, improving his hands as well. If he can prove to be a versatile guy, then someone that can be taken real late or taken as an undrafted guy and make his way and find his opportunity in the pros.
Now, COVID has actually affected quite a few college teams. I don't have a little graphic for it, but basically we saw Ohio State missed, I think, the 3rd game already this season, and they started late, so they're only playing a handful of games.
Right.
And looking at the standings, I have a graphic here. They are 4-0, and they're ranked 4th. They're currently on pace to make it to the college playoff, even though Florida's 7-1, Cincinnati's 8-0, Miami's 7-1, BYU, who's the big snub at the 14th ranked school, they're 8-0. And you're telling me you're going to put a team that's 4-0 into the college football playoff over these teams that have played 12 games?
Yeah, this is the same argument that Sully and I have been having, not against each other, but with each other against these Big Ten conference schools who may be doing better in their much fewer opportunities. But there are schools that are much more deserving. All those schools that you just named, I would have much higher than any Big Ten school who has really not shown the same efforts. No testing has changed. So they could have, played the same time and started at the same opportunity as the other conferences, such as the SECs or the ACCs. So really, it's inexcusable for them to start late and then for them to start moving all these games now. I know there's some new rankings that are going to come out within the next 24 hours. Get Ohio State out of my top 4, out of my top 10. Again, all those teams that you just mentioned, the BYUs and the Floridas, move them up into contention. Those teams that have played 7, 8, 9 games this year, those are who I want to see competing for a title.
Now, I think the only argument really against it, right, is like if you've got 4 teams, you want the 4 best teams. And really, Ohio State is one of the best teams. It's just the problem is I think that when it comes to playoffs, quote unquote, I believe that playoffs are something that you have to earn in the regular season.
Correct.
And I don't feel like they've earned it in the regular season, even though they may be the 4th or 3rd best team.
Hey, like I mentioned before, do your own Big Ten conference tournament at the end there. If you really want to have some type of conference tournament or some type of tournament altogether, you can have your own playoff within your own conference. But don't start thinking that with 5 or 6 games to end your season, they're going to be able to compete with teams that have played 8, 9, or 10. That's more wear and tear on their bodies. And like you mentioned, it's earning it that gets you into the playoffs and getting those opportunities at a national championship. And I don't think those Big Ten schools have earned it.
And COVID has found its way into the NFL. You and I talked about it previous to the show starting. The Steelers and the Ravens, what a debacle this has turned into. With the game getting moved from Sunday to Tuesday and now from Tuesday to Wednesday. And it's just like, how many times are they going to postpone this? And I know they're trying to be safe, right? But, I mean, we look at a team like the Denver Broncos this year or this week, who they didn't have a single quarterback on the roster. They'd actually asked permission to have their coach be the quarterback and were denied. And, but they're bending over backwards for the Ravens and the Steelers. I don't understand.
Yeah, it seems to be a little bit of favoritism, especially with these two teams who have always had a great rivalry in their division and who right now are vying for those playoff spots. I mean, the Steelers are the number one team in the conference. They're still undefeated. So it does seem to be some favoritism. I think we're seeing stark differences between the NHL and the NBA and the successes that they had and what we're seeing right now with the NFL and college football with all of the rescheduling of games, the cancellations of games, the mismanagement of players and situations. I think you had even mentioned towards the beginning of this football season and some predictions that you mentioned the coach and the team that really handles COVID the best is the team that's going to find the most success this season. And we're seeing some teams and some coaches really mismanage these opportunities. I mean, it's costing them in some cases, like New Orleans, draft picks. It's costing them money. I just saw the New England Patriots get fined as well. So COVID-19 has certainly thrown a curveball into every sport and really every business. But I think in football, we're seeing it really be shuffled around a lot. And again, I'd have to agree. We're seeing some favoritism with this game over other games that we've seen just happen. I mean, the Patriots game when Cam, had to play, I don't know if they even had two practices in between their bye week and the time that they had to move their game to. So definitely some mismanagement by Goodell and other coaches.
Now, that's the news that I had. You had some additional news topics you wanted to go through.
Yeah, just a few things. So, I mean, you had mentioned the Steelers-Ravens game, and so to dovetail off that does end up moving another game. We're continuing to see a domino effect. So the game between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Washington football team that was scheduled for this coming Sunday is now moved to Monday night, and that's obviously subject to continue to move. I think other than that, Will Fuller, a guy for the Texans, we may not get a chance to talk about that game because, I mean, they're 4-7, and they were a Thanksgiving Day game. But Will Fuller is now suspended for 6 games. He got suspended for PED use, and he was one of their leading receivers. He was a guy questioned coming into the year due to his health. But I'd like to remind everybody he is a free agent coming into next year, so certainly doesn't bode well for him that he loses the last few games of this year, and he'd have to basically ask for a contract knowing that he wouldn't be playing the first 2 games of next year.
Does it surprise you at all how few NFL players get busted for PEDs? Because I really feel like all of them have to be on it. These guys are so big and so fast, and you're telling me maybe 3-4 guys get suspended every year.
Yeah, it's way more acceptable in this league than it is in other leagues for sure. In the MLB, I mean, we just saw a guy like Robinson Cano just get suspended for the entire 2021 season for the New York Mets for his PED use. I think that was probably his second go around on it because I think he got hit also with Seattle. So yeah, he's going to miss the entire 2021 year. Whereas in the NFL, you see maybe 2 or 3 of these a season. They're more worried about deflated footballs and how high your socks are than they are about you ripping roids or getting high.
All right, so it is time to play Greater Than.
Oh, there's that logo.
I have a few. I actually thought of doing a shirt, because we were talking about some ideas, a shirt with a Greater Than logo. But I have the 12 is greater than 9, so I'm like, is it too similar? I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
But all right, so I'm going to let you kick things off because I let it off last time we played Greater Than.
Perfect. Well, as long as you think we're going to get a few in, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start with sports. I'm going to go with baseball here. I'm going to go with 2 sluggers. I'm going to go with, a guy that's been in the league both guys have been in the league for a long time. So I think you've got a good grasp of both of them. But I want to know who you like better. Albert Pujols, Miguel Cabrera. I'm thinking we may get in a little of Attic Wayne right now. There's a little bit of frozenness. So again, I'm just going to repeat my greater than is the first greater than of this episode. And it was Miguel Cabrera and Albert Pujols. I'm asking Wayne, what he thinks of these two sluggers that probably on the back nine of their baseball career. Wayne will get back with us in a second. I thought this was a good one to ask Wayne. I thought that, they both have certainly been, in the MLB for more than, a dozen years. Both these guys have won MVPs, been huge parts of their team successes. To this point, I don't think that Albert Pujols has actually won a World Series. So I think this is a tight one. To be honest with you, I see that Wayne had to jump off. So he's probably going to jump right back on, probably just a little bit of an off connection in his attic. But I'm going to say, don't tell him, but I lean Miguel Cabrera. I think a gentleman that in this day and age that has won the Triple Crown deserves the edge. I think Albert Pujols, he's really had a steep decline at this point in his career. They both are showing it. But Albert Pujols has had more of a steep decline in his more recent years. It's kind of sad to see that he's not really going to win anything. And he's on the same team as a guy that I know Sully loves, and he's within our intro. And that's Mike Trout. And I'm not sure if we're going to see Mike Trout win anything either. Again, my first greater than, which Wayne disconnected a little bit on there, was Miguel Cabrera and Albert Pujols, two all-time sluggers that are finishing up what I would say are Hall of Fame careers. So hopefully you folks out there that are baseball fans will have an opinion on those two guys and be able to argue which one you think is more deserving of an all-time slot. If you're making an all-time baseball team or you're doing a draft, which one of those two guys are you going to put on your team first? I'm going to go ahead and give you another sports one here, just because I'm not sure how soon our buddy Wayne's going to jump back on. I know he's troubleshooting. So I'm going to go down here to my last one, and this is another sports one, just because I'm way more concerned with when he does pop back on that I give him one of his movie or music ones. But another sports one here, folks, and this is football. So all you pigskin fans, and this is a running back question. So Sully, if you're listening, hope I get an opinion from you, my man. But whoever may be listening and you are a football fan, running back question here, greater than Marshall Faulk or LaDainian Tomlinson? I think both these guys played relatively around the same time. We saw LT play for a little bit longer. Both electric guys that I think you saw catch the ball, run the ball, huge parts of their offenses. Love the jerseys for both. You got the powder blue for the Chargers. You've got, those horned jerseys for Marshall Faulk. I mean, he obviously did well with the Colts as well before going over to St. Louis. I think both these guys are guys that you'll see be drafted early in these types of fantasy drafts that Sully, myself, and Wayne are always talking about. I think these guys are ones that always you'll see drafted as very versatile guys. Like I mentioned, guys that are going to catch the ball, run the ball. We even saw LT throw the ball a few times. I think personally, I'm going to give the edge to LT, even though I think he's a bit more of a crybaby. I think he is someone that's more exciting to me. Even though we saw Falk as part of the Greatest Show on Turf with St. Louis. He's surrounded by some Hall of Fame players as well. We're talking about Isaac Bruce, Torrey Holt, Kurt Warner, who won 2 MVPs within his first 5 years in the NFL, which is a huge stat that came up the other day when I was watching football. That stumped me. I think that the Greatest Show on Turf, Orlando Pace, Kevin Green, that team was so super stacked. That's the reason they had the success that they did throughout that time. So I think Marshall Faulk just surrounded with a much better team, whereas LT had Antonio Gates, which you'll never have a broadcast go by without someone mentioning that he went undrafted and he actually played college basketball. Never played college football. So other than that, I mean, Phillip Rivers is good. I don't put him in the upper echelon that I think some other guys may. So that's why I think, throughout that time, if we're comparing teams and the success of these two guys, very close stats wise. LC has more touchdowns, but just doesn't have the hardware that I'd say Marshall Faulk does. But again, individually, I want to give it to LaDainian Tomlinson. Our buddy Wayne must be struggling a little bit with his attic, which is okay. We'll give him a second to pop back on. I'm going to go ahead here and I want to give you guys a movie one. I was really hoping to give him this one, but I'm going to give you guys a movie one. I know you fans are really loving hearing my voice unstopped here. But I'm going to give you a movie one, and that is two that I found to be within the top 15 of IMDb's all-time movie ranking. And I know that Wayne's a big movie head, so any of you movie heads out here that are looking for your non-sports question, this is Inception or the movie Fight Club. Both what we would call mind fucks. They certainly leave you wondering throughout the movie, what's going to happen. I had to admit to my mom, who helps me come up with some of these, that I have not seen Fight Club. And if I have, I don't remember it. So it's something that I'll certainly have to, put on my immediate watch list. But for the time being, I've actually been really a huge fan of Inception. It's probably one of my top 5 to 10 movies. So that's where I would lean personally. I think that both are saw as great movies, but I'm going to go ahead and give it to Inception. We've gone a few minutes without Wayne here, so if you folks just give me one moment of just silence, I'm going to go ahead and jump over and see if he's messaged, see if there's any communication from him. All right, and I just got word from our friend Wayne that his power went out, which, it wasn't all too unforeseen. We did give you guys a bit of a polite and a gentle warning that weather here in New Hampshire was being a little cranky. So I'm going to continue to run through some of these greater thans. I'm a little sad that Wayne's not getting a chance to hear some of these and debate some of them. Maybe once he pops back on, I'll be able to ask these again to him and he'll have opinions. But we're going to hop back to a sports one. Because I know we are Infinity Sports. We like having these miscellaneous, or what my Jeopardy game would call potpourri. But we have some miscellaneous ones here. And going back with sports, and this is a basketball one. So Sully, JV, anybody here in FBAS, or anybody that may be listening and you are a basketball fan, I've got a guy that is currently retired, who never won NBA MVP. I've got a guy here who is still playing, who has won NBA MVP. And I want you guys to go ahead and decide. You can go ahead and let me know on Twitter. You can let the show know. You can let us know in any capacity. Comment on the show now. Comment on YouTube. Paul Pierce, James Harden. Who would you liken as the better all-time player? I know that we haven't seen the end of James Harden yet, but both these guys have led teams offensively. They've led them in different eras, I would say, even though they're closer together. James Harden plays such a different offensive game than Paul Pierce. And Paul Pierce, for a time, because I wouldn't say that Antoine Walker led that Celtics team. I would say that Paul Pierce led that Celtics team really until they got KG and Ray Allen. And even then, he took not just a step back, but 2 steps back to let those two be bigger parts of their offense and their team than he was. I still think he was super integral in them winning the championship that they did and them getting to the finals that they did. But just different players. He evolved throughout his career. Once he left the Celtics, I think it really dissolved into not being much of a career, to be honest. But all time, I would give it to Paul Pierce. I think he gives you that defensive threat, that leadership that we quite haven't seen yet from James Harden. We still see offensive outpouring. I think he's got a great pull-up J. He's going to rebound the ball well. He's going to be vocal. He's going to be a great locker room guy. James Harden, I don't know if he's proven that he's a great locker room guy. I mean, we see some rumors and some stories still of him, being a shenanigans type player, outside of, the basketball court. On the court, a guy that is continuing to average 25, 30, 35 points a game and dish out plenty of assists. His defense has certainly improved, but not to the point where he's going to be making any all-defense teams. We've seen him fail in his different opportunities. He wasn't a star yet in OKC, but in his time there, as well as his time here in Houston, we're not seeing him jive well with anybody. Now we're seeing him talk about wanting to go to Brooklyn, and I am curious about how that would look like with Kevin Durant and with Kyrie Irving. We're talking about three guys that are very ball-dominant players. I think they're all very fun, but, that's more of a team that I think would succeed in a video game, not so much so on an NBA court. And I think Brooklyn would really put themselves in a super tough position to succeed if they made that trade, not only of what it would make their team look like currently, but what it does to their team and having to remove players. I think Jared Allen, like Sully had mentioned, is one of the best big men in the league. I mean, not just because of his little fro and his mustache, but the way he plays, I think, is fantastic. So I don't think it's worth breaking up that Brooklyn dynamic for a James Harden. So again, going back to my greater than here, is Paul Pierce or James Harden. I'm giving it to Paul Pierce. I love the guy's leadership. I love his scoring, his rebounding. So I'm going to go with Paul Pierce. James Harden, still an elite scorer, but he is 31, coming into his age 32 season. Season is coming up soon. Still a lot of questions as far as like where he's going to continue to play, and with a guy that's certainly on the back end of his career, maybe has about 4 or 5 competent years left in him. I'm not sure he's going to get that championship, especially with how stacked LA is looking. So I'm not sure he's going to have the team success that a guy like Paul Pierce is going to have either. Wayne and I were talking just before we got on the air, or just as we were getting on the air, about the LA Lakers and what they've done so far in the offseason. I think that Montrezl Harrell was a fantastic pickup for them. Dennis Schroeder was fantastic for them. Them continuing to build on that championship roster is almost scary. We haven't seen other NBA teams make big moves yet that I think are really putting them in big positions. We have seen a lot of moves. I am a Pistons fan, and they drafted Killian Hayes, who I'm happy about, but for the most part, they've been in NBA purgatory. Not bad enough to get a top 3 pick, not good enough to get into the playoffs. So certainly NBA purgatory. So during the last, I would say 6 to 8 years, what I've done is I've just watched the rest of the league, and I think right now, Denver looks pretty good. New York is looking pretty good for a young team that hasn't gotten respect in a long time. Wayne and I have talked about this off the air. And Obi Toppin is a guy that I obviously wanted on the Pistons. He went to pick after. But him on that young offense, I think, is really, really good. So New York, I think, looks good. As much as I love Michael Jordan, I have a Jumpman tattoo on my arm. I don't understand a lot of the moves this guy makes. Doing a sign and trade to get Gordon Hayward. I thought that Gordon Hayward was either going to play until he died in Boston or end up being, traded back towards Indiana, where he played collegiately and grew up. So for him to be moved to Charlotte and be playing for Michael Jordan, I'm just not sure what Jordan's doing in the front office. He really should have somebody who is much more accustomed to doing this job to take over, because it's been a mess ever since he's been an owner there. But yeah, a lot of NBA teams are doing a lot of moves, but nobody is having a more successful offseason than the Lakers. And it's super important for them to do so because of how short the offseason is going to be. Another thing that Wayne and I had touched on is that the NBA season kicks off in less than a month here. We're going to start seeing teams really get together as safely as they can. I don't really know. Haven't really heard rumblings about the NBA starting their season in a bubble like they had ended their season. They did have a ton of success with that, so I'm curious to see how that's going to work. Usually we see, the Adam Schefter of the NBA is Adrian Wojnarowski. Usually we see a Woj bomb or two, so I'm sure as the holidays are creeping up, we'll start to see some Woj bombs about how the NBA is going to culminate or start their season. And I'm curious. I'm excited. The NBA is one of my more favorite sports, and with this shorter off season, I'm curious to see how things evolve. I am super sad to hear about Klay Thompson. I think that this Warriors team was going to look super fun, and certainly could have competed again for a home playoff spot. I'm curious to see what Milwaukee does. It looks like this is kind of a make-it-break-it year. If they don't succeed and do really well, then you could certainly see Giannis decide to make another jump. They're not another jump, but make that jump to another team, whether it be through free agency or a sign and trade. It sounds like there's been a lot of rumors about him going to Golden State. I'd hate to see him go to LA. That brings Dream Team to a whole new sickening level. I really appreciate you guys listening to the voice of Jesse for this long. I know usually you're accustomed to hearing Wayne's voice or Sully's voice here as well. So this has been a longer version of Greater Than. We definitely had intentions to play probably about a 10-minute version of this game and then get into as many NFL games as we could. He lives more so in central New Hampshire, so I'm sure the rain is pounding him, and hopefully his power will find its way back on. But I think what I'm going to do is jump into a couple of the NFL games that I know that I got a chance to watch. The first of which is going to be, and it's going to be no shock to any of you that know me, that's the Patriots game. I saw the Patriots be able to play the Arizona Cardinals. The Arizona Cardinals is a team that I know that all three of us, myself, Wayne, and Sully, all really liked as a dark horse team, and they really started to shine brighter and brighter as the season started to progress. DeAndre Hopkins really shone and proved himself as the best receiver in the NFL in every week that hasn't been this week, Tyreek Hill. But this game, I came into this game looking at it going, oh, man, Cardinals are going to wipe up the floor with the Patriots. The Patriots are just going to continue to look towards, a losing record on the season, which would have been Bill Belichick since his first season as the Patriots coach. But I came into this game looking at it as a loss. I was looking towards, draft prospects. I was listening to these Sully prospect bits that we're having on the episodes and just starting to think, man, who are we adding? But as the game went on, I noticed that Kyler Murray, or at least Cliff Kingsbury and Kyler Murray, they weren't utilizing themselves to the best of their abilities. That offense didn't seem to gel as much as it was throughout the remainder of the season, because against the Patriots and that defense, they were having a tough time. To only put up, I believe it was 17 points. It was 17 points because Patriots ended up winning 20-17 as time expired. Nick Folk hit a 50-yard field goal to win the game, and I was shocked. I was shocked because I expected more points than 17 points from this Arizona Cardinals team. You have Kenyon Drake as your running back. You have Chase Edmonds back there, but your team is Kirk, it's Fitzgerald, it's DeAndre Hopkins, it's Kyler Murray, who has been having these 300- and 400-yard games, these all-purpose yard games. So I expected way more offense out of this game. I don't remember listening to the over-under predictions from Sully and Wayne. Maybe they snuck them in. But I would be shocked if this game actually hit what a lot of bettors were expecting it to. Again, it was a 37-point total in the end, but I expected Arizona to hit that by themselves. They are a high-powered offense. For them to be held in check by a New England defense that seems to lose players every week. I mean, they came into the season with about 8 or 9 players that weren't going to start this year that started for them last year. So certainly not what I expected to see in this game. Again, it was a 20-17 Patriots win. Someone that I know has gotten way more playing time this year than Wayne would like, and Wayne predicted, is Cam Newton. Cam Newton has looked atrocious. This man completed less than 10 passes this week. It is the second time this season that he has less than 100 passing yards. My mom and I were screaming for Jarrett Stidham in the second half. The first pass of the game, Cam Newton throws an interception. He's throwing balls towards people's feet. He's holding the ball way too long and getting sacked. It is just so bad watching this guy who at one point won an MVP. At one point, he led his team to a Super Bowl against the Broncos. And even though he didn't end up winning that game, you would think the guy has more mental capacity than he's shown this season. But for a guy who's been in the league for as long as he had, to take so many sacks, it's crazy to see how many plays he wastes and how many good opportunities he will squander by him holding onto the ball and not being a smarter guy with it. There are players on the New England offense like James White, again, I'm struggling to name many offensive weapons because there hasn't been many. But James White is a guy that scored both touchdowns for New England. And, oh, man, thank God he was there because Cam Newton can't seem to hit the backside of a barn. Again, he's throwing it at people's feet. He's throwing it off people's hands and off their helmets, getting the ball picked off. He has been disappointing. Those first 2 games of the year, it was fool's gold. We had a great rushing performance by him. We had a great passing performance by him in consecutive weeks. And it was fool's gold. I think a lot of people looked at that and we were like, oh, man, Cam Newton, look at this. You've done an amazing job. And he's transformed the offense. Everybody thought it was going to be a chameleon-like Patriots offense that was just going to, change week to week and do whatever they needed to do to get games won. But ever since COVID has hit the Patriots and has hit Cam Newton, he has been atrocious. Again, my mom and I were screaming for Jarrett Stidham to get into the game. It's a struggle to watch Cam Newton continue to get in the game. When they won the game, he didn't even look happy about it. He looked downtrodden. And then he had comments after the game in press conferences. I know New England media is never easy on guys, but he's making comments like, I'm not going to apologize for winning the game. I'm not here to make fans, like, blah, blah, blah. Like, oh, man, when you're playing as poorly as you are, you need to shut your mouth. Go back to the Patriot way and say the things you need to say. A huge game that I got to see other than that game, again, that was the Patriots winning and making their record 5-6. That was the Packers beating down on their division rival Bears. We saw Mitchell Trubisky start again for the Bears the first time since week 3. And they did end up getting beat. They got crushed, I would say, by the Packers. Aaron Rodgers, another performance where he has 4 passing touchdowns. So if he's not your leading MVP candidate, I will say that's okay because it better be going for Patrick Mahomes. But another amazing performance by him where he doesn't have the greatest receiving core, but he does magic with what he does have. A great rushing performance by Aaron Jones. So we saw the Packers win. They do lead that division pretty handedly. It looks like they're going to secure that top spot in their division very soon. And with that Bears loss, that gives them the same record as the Patriots, 5-6. And a familiar fan of the show, a friend of the show, Brandon Coombs, came on to our NFC North division breakdown months ago and claimed that this team was going to win the division, that the Vikings were also going to make the playoffs, and these 2 teams are the worst 2 teams in their division. Actually, I got to take that back. The Lions also stink. The Lions finally fired Matt Patricia. They finally fired Bob Quinn. Those guys that they had poached from New England a time ago didn't seem to work so well without that Bill Belichick-Tom Brady connection because we saw Detroit get rid of them. But those 3 teams stink. The Packers are going to win that division and sneak into the playoffs again. Another amazing year for Aaron Rodgers. Just to go back to Brandon Coombs and another poor preseason prediction, saying that Aaron Rodgers was going to have another one of those shitty Aaron Rodgers years. Again, if he's not your MVP candidate, then he's your second MVP candidate. Bar none, he's having an amazing year. 4 touchdown passes in this win against the Bears. Another great game. And this is the ultimate reason that I think Sully called in sick, and that is the Kansas City Chiefs handed it to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Don't look at that final score. That doesn't really tell you how bad the game was. In the first half, Tyreek Hill had over 200 receiving yards. He had 3 touchdowns in the first half. Patrick Mahomes did things that I wish that a guy that has, gone to the Super Bowl and won an MVP for my favorite team, Cam Newton. I wish he would do some of the things that Pat Mahomes does. Throws the ball away, throws it at the ground, runs forward instead of running sideways, Pat Mahomes continues to do MVP-like things. He should be your clear-cut MVP candidate right now. Him and Aaron Rodgers are having elite years, but the performance that he and Tyreek Hill had was just amazing. They put on an offensive outburst against Tampa Bay. Tom Brady looked lost. The offense looked lost. We spoke about it a little bit earlier in the news section when Wayne had brought up the poor sport Tom Brady, as well as the misuse of the Tampa Bay offense. But yeah, the continued lack of play action for Tampa Bay, the excessive use of those deep passes where I know that Mike Evans is an amazing tall guy, a great receiver, and he'll do well with those, but you have to adapt to the quarterback that you have. And Tom Brady is not that type of quarterback anymore. He never really was that amazing deep ball guy. He's not the guy that's going to succeed in doing that right now. So you have to do more dink and dunks. You have to, chip down the field. It's death by a thousand paper cuts is what it's called. You have to just utilize your running backs, utilize your slot guys. What was his name? Scotty Miller, I think, is the Tampa Bay's version of Julian Edelman. Get him and Antonio Brown on the field at the same time doing crossing routes. Do some more short routes to your tight ends like Cameron Bray and to Gronkowski. You're seeing Gronk get more time on the field and get more shine. But this team is utilizing Tom Brady in the wrong way. That's why you're seeing them have 5 losses right now. It's going to get rough. So those are probably the biggest things that I took away from this week in the NFL. I did want to mention we saw the Browns win. They won a close one against the Jacksonville Jaguars. So joke continues to be on me on the Jaguars, who I said would win 5 out of their 6 division games. Not that this was a division game, but they have been bad. I believe this was their 10th straight loss. And so in doing so, they have actually fired their GM, Dave Caldwell. They've decided they don't want to move forward with him. And I know that Wayne loves to bring up every week them looking at quarterbacks in the upcoming draft. And so I do believe that it's probably something they'll have to do is look at that. Because neither one of their quarterbacks is the answer. Saw a pretty decent performance by Colin Johnson, who is a huge receiver, big hands from Texas. I'm sure we can have Sully comment on him at some point, but a sneaky big guy down there. Him and Chark, I'm sure, are going to be nice gifts for any quarterback that ends up calling Jacksonville home. But again, we saw Cleveland claim that victory. They're 8-3 now. If you asked any three of us before the season started, if we saw Cleveland having an 8-3 record at this point, and being the second team in the division, not the Ravens, not the Steelers, the second team in the division right now is the Browns. So that is very impressive. It's incredible for the Browns to be where they're at, especially considering there's been no Odell Beckham Jr. So the Browns got another win. They're 8-3. What else did we see? We saw the Tennessee Titans. They went ahead and they manhandled the Colts. I know the Colts were a pick by Sully to get into the playoffs and I believe even get to the Super Bowl for the AFC. Well, they got manhandled by the Tennessee Titans. Mostly, it was a first-half performance by Derrick Henry. I mean, once you let that man rumble, you're not taking him down. And he had 3 touchdowns, 180 yards, over 25 carries. It's like a vending machine on wheels. You don't want to try and tackle this man once he gets going. And, as the weather gets colder, it's going to be harder to tackle a guy like this. You're going to see offenses, once they get into the playoffs, they're going to start using their run game more. Their run game and their defense is what's going to get them into the playoffs and through the playoffs. So this Tennessee team is primed and ready. This was an impressive win. And I think this is your dark horse AFC team. A lot of people are looking at Pittsburgh and their undefeated record. A lot of people are looking at Kansas City and what they just did to Tampa and what they continue to do to teams this year. But watch out. You need to watch out for the Tennessee Titans because they snuck into the playoffs last year. They made some noise. Mike Vrabel is a good and ballsy coach. You're seeing their receiver Brown becoming a real big threat. He's a big physical guy. He had, I believe, 2 total touchdowns. One of them was a special teams touchdown. So Tennessee's really putting it together. We saw the Bills win. Bills won big. Forget exactly who they were playing, but they won their game. Yeah, we're seeing a lot of big things here. Right now, the Giants are first in the division because of their win. But it seems like every week that we are on and we're talking about the NFC East, it's the team that does end up squeaking out a win that week is then leading the division. That's how bad that division is. But with 4 wins, I believe, right now, the Giants are leading that division. They're winning that division. I think it's going to be the team that actually gets in the playoffs to represent this division. The Eagles play tonight, but they've continued to look bad because it's my show right now. I don't have any opposition. I can take as much time as I want right now to really talk about the quarterback position in Philadelphia. We talked about it when they drafted him, but Philadelphia is starting to, you're hearing noise about Jalen Hurts, a guy they drafted in the second round. The fans have been murmuring. We know those Philly fans can be fanatics. So we're starting to hear Jalen Hurts get some first-team reps. Carson Wentz has played like doo-doo most of the season. If he's not leading the league in interceptions, he's very close. This guy is a turnover machine. I'll hear Sully's and even Wayne's excuses that, they're losing a lot of people on the offensive line, and the offensive line's not playing good, and they're losing players on offense and defense. Listen up, guys. Every team is losing players on offensive defense. Every team is dealing with injuries or COVID. So it's time for Carson Wentz, a guy that was drafted in the top 5 years ago, a guy that was just paid lots of money to put up or shut up. This is his game against Seattle. If he comes out and wins this game on Monday Night Football, I think he earns himself the rest of the season. If he looks poor through any of this and Jalen Hurts gets in the game, it's done. It's over with for Carson Wentz. He's had such a bad season so far. I'm sick of hearing excuses for him. If he plays poor throughout this game on this stage against Seattle, which we've talked about it, guys, Seattle does not have a good defense. They have one of the worst defenses in the league. Carson Wentz should be able to do something. If he doesn't, it's done. It's over for Carson Wentz. Go ahead and get Jalen Hurts in there, and let's see what you have. We're going to go from Wentz to Hurts. I think that Hurts is a guy that Wayne really enjoys. I know he enjoyed him at Oklahoma. And he is a guy that will be able to bring you more positional versatility, a guy that will be able to pass the ball, run the ball, certainly faster than Carson Wentz. And it seems like, the fans are going to rally around him. Maybe the team will rally around him and be able to get the division win here. If they end up sealing the division, then this could be something very revitalizing for the Philadelphia Eagles team. Really appreciate all you fans sticking with me. I know this is not what you expected. It's been a little bit of a bumpy road this week, but we appreciate all the fans' continued support. I know that we really appreciate Belly Up Sports for having us on. I know between weather and COVID, we're continuing to be flexible and put out the best product we can. It's been great to be able to recap as many games as my brain will be able to remember. I know that Wayne had different video cut-ups and stats that he'll be upset that Mother Nature got involved and had her hands in here. But got a chance to talk about a lot of games. Another game I want to mention before I forget is the Raiders. The Las Vegas Raiders were in the hunt, I would say. They were in the hunt for a playoff spot, and they got crushed. It didn't look good at all. And the fact that they lost that game really hurts their playoff chances. The AFC teams that are still vying for those last 3 spots after the division winners is definitely a mess right now. You got teams like Cleveland, you've got teams like Vegas. Those teams are really vying for playoff spots right now, and you really have to make statements with 4 games remaining. I mentioned it earlier, we only have 4 games remaining in the NFL season. Next week is a good week for Tom Brady and Tampa to have their bye week. They're going to need it to get their head right, their offense right. Denver, we can go ahead and talk about Denver before we get off the air here, but the Broncos not being able to start any quarterbacks, they went ahead and they called up a practice squad receiver. The guy had more interceptions than he had completions. Look at the offense. I know the team and the organization wasn't put in a great position to succeed. But it didn't look like they really put their quarterback in a great position to succeed either. A lot of those passes seemed to be deep. I know the only completion that he did have was to Noah Fant. He completed 1 pass through 2 interceptions, but it just didn't look good. So you feel for that Denver team, but again, it's going to come down to what team and organization handles COVID the best. And I would say that so far it seems like Pittsburgh, it's teams like Kansas City, and in the NFC, it's teams like Tampa Bay, even though they don't have the most wins. You're not seeing a lot of problems with players going down with injury or COVID. Again, I want to thank all the Infinity Sports fans, everybody that's given us an opportunity to continue to grow. We started this less than a year ago, and I know that we've been able to start on one network, make a jump to a different network that has allowed us to do a few different things and be more flexible. And the fans have continued to grow with us. We have support from Wayne's family, my family, Sully's family, and all of our family and friends. So buy some merch if you can. We'll see if we can get some car stickers, some decals up there. But for right now, we're going to continue to generate some shirts and get some more, I think, some organic ideas up there, something that is ripe from the show. But thank you for your support tonight. I know this is certainly not what I had originally intended or Wayne. But you fans are always the best. You stick with us throughout everything. Want to give a last second shout out here to the Newberry Public Library for letting me record in their parking lot in my vehicle. So hopefully Wayne's able to shut this down on his end in a moment here. But it's going to be a little unorthodox. I'm going to throw it to our main man, Kenny the Jet Smith. And if you don't know this bit, this comes from the 2000 NBA dunk contest. Right after Vince Carter had done one of his amazing dunks. Pretty much every dunk he did in this dunk contest was amazing. But after one of the dunks, it may have been the reverse windmill, the honey dip, who knows, the 360. But after Vince Carter did one of these dunks, Kenny the Jet Smith said, "It's over! It's over, ladies and gentlemen." So one last time, I want to thank everybody for your patience and your cooperation with the show. Not what we had originally intended, but we got to talk about a few greater thans. We also got to talk about a few games, a few of the highlight games, the marquee games, and hopefully you guys are watching the Seattle game, Seattle versus the Philadelphia Eagles, and you can see exactly what I've been talking about, Carson Wentz. So thank you all, and Kenny, is Wayne's electricity back, or is it over? It's over. Thanks, man. Thanks, guys.